Hi, I'm Nicholas Sparks. I'm the author of The Notebook, A Walk to Remember, Dear John, The Longest Ride, and of course, my latest novel, The Return. Now, as a novelist, I'm often asked about novels that have inspired me in the past. So let me take you a walk down memory lane, so to speak, and I'll tell you some of those works that have influenced me. The first, which you may or may not believe, are the collected works of Stephen King. Growing up, I fell in love with his stories. I fell in love with the characters in the stories. And although it's a very different genre when compared to mine, there were lessons that I drew from his writing that I've never forgotten, and I try to incorporate in my own works. First is the thought that it's most important to never forget you're trying to tell a story that interests the reader. You're trying to keep the pages turning, and you're trying to include elements in that story that are not only appropriate to the genre, but that strike readers as original and interesting, and yet have a universal aspect to them. So the lessons I draw from Stephen King are readability, so to speak. Second novel that has really been important through my career, and it's probably not much of a surprise, is A Farewell to Arms by Ernest Hemingway. It was probably, or it is probably, the best known love story of the 20th century. Of course, Hemingway did not published that many novels during his lifetime. This was one of his most popular. It's a love story set against the backdrop of World War I, between a soldier essentially and a nurse. And it has everything that a great love story should have. It has budding romance, intimacy, true love, and of course, tragedy. And he did it in such an original way at a time when such novels weren't being written, that it has always struck me as just a profound work of fiction, one worthy of its place in the literary world. The final novel that I'd like to recommend is The Invisible Man by Ralph Ellison. Now, this isn't the Invisible Man that you see on the movies, right? This was a novel written in the early 1950s, and it covers a black man's experience in the United States. I read this novel when I was in college, and more than anything, this novel introduced me to the power and importance of character voice, that it is the way the character speaks with other people or frames thoughts in his own mind. His voice, how does he say things? Is he an optimist? Is he a pessimist? How does he sound when he's upset? How does he sound when he's happy? All of these things go to voice, and they add to the dimensionality of character. They add to a feeling of realism. Well, this particular novel, in this particular instance, the character voice is so incredibly strong. And of course, the novel is a wonderful novel, and many of the issues that are currently going on today in the world are explored. And it strikes me as amazing that this was written 75 years ago, and we can say how much has changed and how much has stayed the same. And yet it's the voice. So you get page turning, and never forget you're telling a story from Stephen King. You get, hey, let's do a love story from Ernest Hemingway, and the power of voice from Ralph Ellison. Those are three novels, or more than one if you count all of Stephen King's work, that have really influenced my writing.